Next, we turn to Brandon Stanton, the photographer and blogger behind Humans of New York. It started as a personal photography project 6 years ago. Since then, the presentation of simple but powerful personal reflections has grown into a social media phenomenon and 2 best-selling books. In our political season of division, his work was a constant reminder of our shared humanity. Brandon, I want to thank you for being here. You've interviewed thousands of people. When you took that first photograph, what did you set out to do?
Well, the process of discovering Humans of New York was very incremental. I lost my job. I was working in Chicago, and I just knew I wanted to be a photographer. I love taking photos, and I started kind of naturally falling into taking pictures of people. And then after that, I would start stopping people on the streets and taking their photo. And I'd only been photographing for about a month or 2 at that time, so I knew if I wanted to be a photographer, I probably didn't have a good chance of being the best photographer in the world. But I thought maybe I had a chance of being one of the best people in the world at stopping random strangers and taking their photographs. So that's how it began, and it grew from that into much more of a storytelling project where I actually interview these random people that I stop on the streets.
Why did you change to interviewing them?
I think it was just more interesting because I'd done it thousands of times, just stopped random people to take their photo. And I realized what was so interesting about my photography is that people were very curious about strangers around them. And I had developed this skill where I could walk up to any random stranger and enter into a conversation with them to take their photograph. And I knew if what made my work interesting was the aspect of interacting with a stranger, why not take that a step further and learn about this person?
And what have you learned over all of those interviews you've done?
You know, I like to, instead of trying to draw similarities between everybody, you know, I think my goal is to find something different about everybody. And, you know, one thing that I find is that we share so many philosophies, we share so many opinions, but the one thing that we have that is truly unique and makes us truly ourselves is our stories. And so when I interview somebody, my questions tend to follow the lines of trying to find out a story about this person that I have not heard from the other 10,000 people I've talked to.
And those stories, as I've looked in on Instagram and seen them, they are so powerful because they're so personal. One recently, you were in Macomb County, and there was a couple, a husband and a wife. His wife has dementia. Tell us that story.
Right, and this is one that was kind of outside the box of what I normally do because I was in Macomb stopping random people on the street, and I had a fan of the website send me an email. And he said, you know, my father-in-law has been taking care of my mother-in-law who has severe dementia, and would you go visit them? And so I did, and I got there, and there was this man in this chair with his wife who he said he doesn't have her mentally, but he has her. And I sat down with them for about an hour and a half, learned the story of how they met and they kind of fell in love, and then learned the story about how her Alzheimer's progressed. And spent some time, you know, talking to this man about the difficulties and, if you would ask him, the joys. He was a very joyful man of watching his wife deteriorate and stepping into a relationship of caretaker where the relationship to husband and wife kind of subsided, but the relationship of caretaker to someone being cared for came up. And, you know, it was a very powerful conversation.
You went to Macomb County, photographed a lot of people, didn't mention their politics. Why did you do that?
Well, sometimes I did. I didn't look for it. I think that's the key point of the work, is that, you know, I think what makes Humans of New York unique is the randomness of it. You know, I've traveled to Iran, I've traveled to Pakistan. These are countries that have very strong narratives told about them in the media, whether they're related to the nuclear deal or whether they're related to terrorism. And so what you have is you have people being asked about their thoughts and their opinions on things such as that. And what I do, and the same thing I did in Macomb County, is I just stop people randomly and I ask what their greatest struggles are. And you find that even in Macomb County was a very important swing county. You know, it's being talked about a lot. And every time it's being talked about in relation to the election. What's your opinion of Trump? You know, why did you vote for Hillary? And we're framing these people based on their political affiliations. But if you actually stop these people and say, what is your greatest struggle right now? It's about their wife's dementia, their son's alcoholism. And you find that they don't identify themselves in the way that we're identifying them. They see themselves as fathers or husbands. And I think Humans of New York, by stopping people randomly and giving them a chance to express their stories, shows more of the identities that people see themselves as.
All right, Brandon Stanton, thanks so much for your work and thanks for being here.
Thank you.